Wasted! An entire year wasted! I got more out of a rice cake and bean sprout sandwich than I'd gotten from any of you guys. You're never going to get drafted if you continue to do this. You guys are playing like a bunch of Sallys.
Hey!
Not now, Sally. Thompson, you think that's funny? Because let me tell you about your kid. Everybody calls your kid 555. Do you know why? Because this is the Antichrist and this is your child.
He's just going through a stage.
Hey, you keep your kid away from my kid during his stage.
Oh, no, you didn't! No, you didn't, Schultz! Mister, I don't know what goes on in my house unless it's posted on Facebook.
I tell my kid one thing, my wife tells my kid the other thing.
Communicate.
I have to tell my kids 5 times before they do anything.
Tell them once, and then consequences.
Coach, my kid's lazy as a sack of bananas.
How lazy is a sack of bananas?
I don't have any kids, but my dog, he gets really cranky. What? My dog? He's like my kid.
We're not talking about pets here, people. We're talking about your little monsters. We have a chance to take them and mold them into productive members of society. Clearly, I'm not getting through, so I've asked a friend of mine to come in and help. She's a doctor. Please listen to her.
Thanks, Coach. All right, guys. The key principles here are to become your child's friend and really inflate their self-esteem.
Oh, Dip. Sorry about that, guys. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank
All
you.
right. My bad. I didn't quite vet that one out. Here, I'm going to go to the board. You got love here that's got to come in. You got communication here. It's going to come in. From the outside, on the zone, you're going to have a whole lot of teamwork that's going to come in here. And from this side, what you're going to have is some patience. A whole lot of it coming in right here on the blitz. Do you got it? Yeah! Well, all right, and then let's go. Come on.
My favorite line is, "Your little monsters." Well, I need to do something that I've never done before, and that is I need to introduce myself to the people in Missouri City, because you probably don't know me from Adam. The last time I preached here, Patrick preached there, so you didn't see who was preaching on our Richmond campus. My name's Matt Barnhill. I'm one of the pastors here. I do adult ministries, and I have never been on your big screen that you're watching right now. So this is our second in our series of Parent Pep Talk. I want you to know a little bit about myself. One, I'm married to Julie. We've been married about, this summer, 31 years, and we have 3 adult daughters who are 29, 27, and 24. So to give you some sense of who you'll be listening to this morning. So I want to thank you for being here today, and obviously I want to thank all of you guys for being here today too. Well, today what we're talking about is parenting touchdowns. Parenting touchdowns. Now, when I heard this title for this message, I couldn't think of a parenting touchdown. That's not exactly a biblical concept, parenting touchdowns. Now, we all know what an exciting touchdown looks like in football. I, for one, have scored 2 touchdowns in organized football. When I was a freshman in high school, I caught a pass and ran it in for a touchdown. And when I was a senior, we were playing in this football game that was pouring down raining. The field was a total mud pit, and it was the most fun I've ever played in an organized football game in my life. We barely won. Every third snap, no matter who had the ball, was a fumble, and the score was determined by who recovered the most fumbles by the end of the game. Well, in that game, I was playing defensive end. The center snapped the ball to the quarterback. It popped up in the air and floated across the field. I caught it in midair and ran it a total of 7 yards in for a touchdown. That year, I was the leading scorer on defense for the Graham High School Steers. Yes, that's right. Well, it wasn't a very good, I think we did film our games back then, but it wasn't a very exciting touchdown because ball was being fumbled all night long. But I was thinking, what are some exciting touchdowns that we all may be familiar with? And if you're a football fan, you'll remember this one. But I went to YouTube and watched a bunch of exciting football touchdowns. This has got to be one of my favorites. So watch this.
Harmon will probably try to squib it, and he does. Ball comes loose, and the Bears have to get out of bounds. Rogers along the sideline, another one. They're still in deep trouble in midfield. They tried to do a couple of... The ball is still loose as they get it to Rogers. They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. Oh, the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone. He's going into the end zone. The Bears have won. The Bears have won. Oh, my God. The most amazing, sensational, dramatic.
My favorite part is he runs over the flute player at the end. He decks the flute player. Well, that's a touchdown we're all familiar with, and they're very exciting. But in parenting, I would suggest to you that the touchdowns we score are much less exciting, and they don't get any kind of replay like that. And I was trying to figure out, one, how do I define a touchdown? And two, how do our children define touchdowns? So I did something that turned out to be really a lot of fun. I asked my wife, who's a kindergarten teacher, I said, here's what I need you to do for me. Ask your students what it is that their parents do that is great. What do your parents do that is great? And then, so I've got that list for you. And then I also have a list that I asked my own daughters in 1988. They were 6, 4, and 6 months old. I asked them, do you know I love you? And they said, yes. And I said, how do you know I love you? And they gave me a list. And then I asked those same girls a week ago, who are now 29, 27, and 24, I said, listen, I'm having to teach on parenting touchdowns this weekend. Can you please come up with something? Tell us something we did that was what we did right. Give me a list of what we did right. Tell us what we did right. And it took them all week to come up with this. I was going, the weekend is coming. We have a Saturday night service, you know. Tell me, I need this stuff. So I was having to hammer them, and Julie was going, don't pressure them. I'm going, I'm pressuring them. Anyway, I've got all these lists now. And I need you to know this, and it's a confession of sorts. What I'm about to read you, these 3 lists, may be the best part of the message. Because God spoke to me through some of the things that you're about to hear, and I suspect He may speak to you. And He'll speak to all of us on a different one. But let me start first, and I'll make some commentary, but not much. I'm just going to read them as they are. Let me start first with the kindergartners. Gracie said, when asked the question, what makes your parents great? Gracie's a River Pointer. She's the only person I'm going to say her name because I know her parents. Gracie said, helping us what do your parents do that's great? Helping us when we get hurt, snuggling on us. Another little girl said, when my sister forgets to do her chores, they do it for her. They'll regret that someday. A little boy said, they feed me good, and they are good drivers. Little girl said, they take me to church every Sunday. Little boy said, they fix my lunch for me, and I better hear an amen from some women in here. He says, they fix my lunch for me, and my dad helps my mom. Little boy says, they take out the trash. My mom and dad make dinner and breakfast. Little girl says, Dad does a good job at work. He watches my baby sister so she doesn't go up the stairs. Another little girl says, if they have a fight, they work it out. And then I tell them, be sure and give each other a hug. If I'm sick, she asks her boss if she can stay home with me. And the last little girl said, when they promise me something, they do it. When my mom tells my dad to mow the lawn, he does it. Yeah. All right, these are my daughters, 1988, 6, 4, and the youngest one was 6 months old. She just spit up when I asked her. So it's the 2 oldest ones. Megan says, how I know Daddy loves me. I'm going to try to read it just the way she wrote it. He helps me get well. He buys me stiff. He gets me foob. And because I can see the special love you give me, and you kiss me and you hug me. I wasn't prepared for this. I've read these 100 times already. And because you get me nice birthday presents, you get me my dinner, you get me a drink. That's her hollering in the middle of the night, I'm thirsty. Why I kept doing that is beyond me. You send notes when you're away. This was before texting and email. You send notes when you're away. You let me go on a walk and spend night at Ashley's. You got me pup cake, that was a basset hound, 2 fish and a crab that have all passed. Praise God. I love you from Megan to Dabby. Brittany, 4 years old. 4 years old. She said, you have a great big heart. You help me clean my room. You buy curtains for mommy. Now, is it just me, or is it not fascinating that a 4-year-old girl says she feels loved by her daddy because her daddy bought curtains for her mommy? First of all, let me tell you a couple things. They weren't curtains. They were window treatments. Do y'all know the difference between curtains and window treatments? I'll tell you the difference. It's debt. Major debt. There's a guy in our church named Salvador. He sells shutters. I saw him talking to my wife one day right out there on the porch, and I went straight up to him and I said, don't you ever talk to my wife again. Do you understand me? The kids are gone. I don't have to love on their mom anymore. She said, you buy curtains for mommy. Fourth one, you take me to the tire swing. And the fifth one was you take good pictures. I have no idea what that was. At the same time, I asked my wife, because she was sitting nearby, I said, do you know how much I love you? And she goes, yes. And I go, how do you know I love you? She says, you help me clean my room, you buy curtains for me, and you take the kids to the tire swing without me. Well, then I asked, this is what my adult daughter said. We'll start with Megan. She's 29. She said, when you were with us kids and the other parent was not with us, you always built each other up to us. Like mom would always talk about dad and everything she loved about him, and dad would do the same, and he always said how beautiful she was. She said, I always felt like you put each other as number one, not us kids. We were second. And she says, this is a big one for me. You let us see you fight, but I think that was great that you did that and did not always go somewhere private. Why? Because I saw you fight, and then I watched you make up. No, she didn't. Because of that, I am not afraid of fighting with my husband. I know he really appreciates that. I also know there is a right way and a wrong way to do it, and I know how important and essential forgiveness is. You loved us so much for who we were and are, and not what we did or how we performed. Mom, this is mainly you since you were stay-at-home parent. You were so purposeful in your parenting and so thoughtful, you took your job very seriously. You took so much time to make each of us feel special individually, not just as the 3 girls. You let us be different from each other, and in fact, you celebrated it. The middle daughter, who was really into the curtains, said, You never allowed me to compare myself to Megan and Bree or anyone else. You always encouraged individuality and God's special, different plan for each of us. I saw you and Mom have a personal relationship with Jesus, but you weren't legalistic and never forced us to go to church or perform because we were pastors' kids. Always felt loved after discipline. Not talking or sweeping things under the rug were not options. We always had to restore relationship. You taught us how to process feelings verbally and resolve conflict at a young age. That's the hazard of growing up in a therapist and a teacher's home. Her husband also answered these about his parents. And there are some similar ones. I want to read a couple that are different. You trusted one another, and maintaining that trust was important. Punishment and consequences were consistent. Always knew if I would get in trouble for blank. You did a good job, or you taught me responsibility with money and working hard. Parents were open about needing help. They never tried to hide that they were getting counseling. good at not overcommitting to family activities, had to choose between extracurricular events and family time a priority. And they both said there was never pressure to perform and never performance-based love. Then my youngest daughter, who didn't get to participate the first time, she said, conflict resolution. I had realistic expectations of what marriage looked like, knew it was healthy to fight, and saw how conflict was resolved in a healthy, respectful manner. To read these, it's like we must have fought all the time. I said to Julie, did we fight all the time? And she said, we did. We fought a lot. And I said, no, we didn't. We hardly ever fought. She said, oh, yes, we did. So we had a fight and we resolved it. It was nice. Then she said, words of affirmation. I felt so secure in our house. Y'all would say to us outside of each other's presence, I love your mom so much, or I love your dad so much. You taught us to see not what people do to you, but why they do it to you. Again, growing up in a counselor's house. And love was not performance-based. That's what the three kids said when they were older. A couple observations about their comments. First of all, we weren't aware that those things were noticed at all. We never had discussions like, we need to make sure that we handle conflict a certain way. Or we need to make sure we don't do performance-based love. All the things they listed were never things that we said we got to be sure and do or not do. But they're saying that those were, at some form or fashion, a parenting touchdown. Well, if we weren't doing those things, what were the things that we were doing? Because we were very purposeful about our parenting in many ways. I'll never forget, we were 23 years old, and we had a 1-year-old and another baby on the way, and we went to a church, and we were convinced of this, that we needed help. We wanted to break some patterns that we brought into marriage from our own families and create some new patterns, but we knew we needed help. And by no choosing of our own, we found ourselves in a church where most of our friends with kids were 10 to 15 years older than us. So our kids were small in our 20s. We had young children, but most of our friends had kids who were middle schoolers and high schoolers. So we made it a point to pay attention to the mentors that were around us. And we learned a great deal. Julie took every class, was in every women's Bible study. We went to every workshop seminar that we could find. We read every book that was recommended.